following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Cardinals baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the co-hosts are Gene, the Yankee-hating machine Hutmaker, and Al Blumkin. Both are present and accounted for, and I'd like to say hello, Gene, and hello, Al.
Hi.
How the hell are you?
I'm warm in the house. Outside, it is cold.
I can well imagine. And this is, what, your third cold snap of the season?
I'm still looking for Al Gore.
Yeah, who's counting at this point?
No, but I said something the other day, and I don't remember if it was on air or if it was to you, Al, but I spent the first 20 years of my life in New York, and then I had to join the Air Force. And there was not one day in all those years on record where it was any colder than you guys have had for a week, 10 days straight.
The temperature is going to be in Minneapolis on the Super Sunday in 2 days. I mean, the game is indoors, but the old saying, getting there is half the fun. It's not going to get out of the single digits.
Wow.
This is not with wind chill. It's not going to get out of single digits.
Now, what I wonder about is the plumbing in the stadium, the electrical, stuff like that. Can that be affected?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
I'm sure all the people in the sports media who are covering this are thrilled to no end to spend 2 weeks up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of memories of the old Vikings. That's
Bud Grant, no gloves, no heaters, and the South and West teams would come in there and they'd be beaten before they started.
Right, and the competition between Green Bay and Minnesota in the days, and Chicago, what they call it, was that the black and blue division?
Yeah, it still is. That division hasn't changed since 1967.
Well,
Tampa Bay was
with the weather, how are you going to develop a passing game?
Yeah, Tampa Bay was in it for a while, but that division for a while. But the other four teams have been there since it was established in 1967.
Yeah. All right, Gene, it's Cardinal time. Start off. You had a wonderful premise for a show, and it is your disappointments as a Cardinal fan.
Yeah, a lot of people have great moments in their history of their teams. And to give you an example, Bill Walton, the great UCLA player, who rused the 89th game. They won 88 in a row, and he talks about the 89th game when they lost to Notre Dame, and also when they lost in the semis in the NCAA to North Carolina State, not the two that they won. And Mickey Mantle, with the 7 World Series rings, he rused about 19.
Yeah, 4 they lost in the 7th game. 55, 57, 60, and 64.
Right. But the 60 and 64, he had amazing stats.
Yes.
But and they lost both of them. The Pittsburgh one is everybody knows that the Yankees really dominated the hitting in the 3 games they won, and the 1 game that they lost in Game 7. But as a Cardinal fan in the 50s growing up, there wasn't too much to root for, except Stan the Man and maybe a couple other Red Shandas until he got traded. But 1957, everything looked kind of promising, even though they had Trader Lane and some crazy ideas. They even took the 2 Redbirds off the bat, and Frank Lane he explained it that the 2 birds take up a lot of space on the uniform, and he was thinking of if it just had Cardinals on it, the uniform would be less heavy, and especially when you're playing a doubleheader in August. That was one of the main things that Frank.
Yeah.
The two birds, they're playing in flannel uniforms to begin with these synthetic uniforms of like 10 years away, and that's what occurs to him. That's going to help. Wow.
And by the way, today is Red Cheney's 95th birthday. He's now the oldest living Hall of Famer. I put that up on Facebook.
I put something about Red. I put 3 pictures. One in the Cardinal uniform, one in the Giant uniform, Red and one in the Milwaukee uniform.
Yeah.
And wow, what a classy guy. Let me ask you this first before I ask Gene about Red Shandings. Gene, you just said something about how the Pirates outplayed the Yankees in the '60 World Series, and
no, the other way around.
Yeah, right. The Yankees outplayed. I don't buy that. I buy you outplay them by how many games you win, and it isn't just the hitting; it's the all-around game.
I asked Dick Grote when I interviewed him in 1985. I said, what was the attitude after the second slaughter? Because they got killed in Pirates were clobbered in games 2 and 3 of that series. And he said, Murtaugh came in there after game 3 and says, we're down 2-1.
And that's all. Right.
That's all.
Again, the score does not matter.
Yeah.
So that I've heard that so many times, how the Yankees scored so many more runs and this, that, and the other thing.
Well, all I can do about that particular series is quote my all-time favorite philosopher, Lawrence Peter Barrett, who when asked what happened after that World Series, he said, we made too many wrong mistakes. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted. Let's get back to Gene in 1957.
Oh, but they did run into the strong pitching of you weren't supposed to mess with the law.
No, the law and Haddix won all 4 of the games. Yeah, and LA Face until he blew up in that last game was pretty dominant. But those are the only 3 pitchers that can get them out.
They were probably the only effective pitchers that they had.
The only effective pitchers were Law, Haddix, and Face. That was it.
Right.
Friend was terrible.
Bob Friend was really a friend to the Yankees.
Yeah, he was terrible. They clobbered him in his 2 starts, and they brought him in top of the 9th inning to protect the 2-run lead. Game 7, and he couldn't even do that. So
his earned run average was like 2,000.
Yeah, it was a little high. So let's get back to 1957.
You're a pretty good punster, by the way.
Yeah.
But in 1957, 12 years old, and the Cardinals are finally making a run. My favorite pitcher, probably in the 50s, was Larry Jackson, and naturally Stan the Man. And then Ken Boyer came up in 1955 and they didn't have an MVP, but he would have been the MVP of the 56 All-Star game with 3 hits and 3 outstanding plays at third base. And in Frank Lane's great wisdom, he got this Eddie Casco, and somehow Eddie Casco was going to move to third, and Ken Boyer was going to move to center field. And it was said that there was only one better center fielder in the National League than Ken Boyer, and that was Willie Mays. He was a pretty five-tool player.
How about
I didn't realize Boyer was that good defensively in the outfield. I know he played there for a while, and Casco must have been washed up by then.
No, he was a rookie.
Oh, okay, because he played later with Cincinnati.
And
he was decent.
Yeah, they had made the Shaney's Doc trade the year before, and Doc was a shortstop that year.
Okay.
That was you had some hope going into August. Usually I'd get the North Star Ledger paper and check out what Stan the Man did, was pretty much, and hoping to see the Yankees lose, of course. But for the Cardinals,
on his birthday, Red Shanding's birthday, would you pay homage to him, and would you tell our audience why he's a Hall of Famer? And no one ever says, oh, that guy shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, this, that. Why was Red Shandings a Hall of Famer? Start with you, Gene. You're a Cardinal fan.
Well, he was a 10-time All-Star, and it was basically in that era, him and Nellie Fox, Shandings probably got better stats than Nellie Fox. He also lost 1 year to the World War II. And, close to 2,500 hits, a 289 average. He was in the MVP for the Braves in '58, I think. He 342 1 year. He was runner-up, and the second basemen weren't expected to really.
Yeah, it was 1953 to 42. He was runner-up to Ferrillo.
Right. Ferrillo had his hand stepped on by DeRocha and sat out the last 2 weeks of the season, and that got me going back in 1953 when I first started following the game. But I think he definitely belongs from that era with a 289 batting average and great fielder. And probably as a Cardinal fan, I probably prefer him as the number one manager.
Oh, of all time or of your time?
No, I think I'd probably pick him over La Russa or whatever. Even though I'm a Cardinal fan, La Russa, I just don't like his style. I'm talking about their style of managing. I'm more like ashamed that I managed like about 500 games in my time, and I'm more like him than La Russa.
Right. Well, actually, to be frank, it's 554. You're selling yourself a little short. But I know you must be talking about Stratomatic.
No, just talking about I did around 500 games or so.
Oh, in youth sports and what have you?
I coached like for 10 years, 50 games a year.
Oh, okay. Wow. And your style coincided with Shandings.
Yeah, and I had a couple of Casey Stengel quips.
Okay. All right. You know what's ironic? That Red missed, I guess it was, the 56th season with
59.
tuberculosis?
59. It was third year with the Braves.
After the, and that was, in those days, tuberculosis, they put you in a sanitarium for crying out loud. And he goes on to be the oldest living Hall of Famer. Go figure. That's.
I was looking at his numbers yesterday. With WAR, the WAR statistic, they have him as a 36th greatest third baseman. They have him behind Eddie Stanky, second baseman, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he only struck out 304. He didn't walk very, very often, but he only struck out 346 times in his career.
Yeah. You're not high on Stanky.
No, Stanky walked a lot. He walked a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, didn't Eddie Stanky manage the Cardinals for a year?
Yeah, he was
my first year.
After 51, he was traded to the Cardinals for Chuck Deering and Max Lanier, became their manager. Actually, he's supposed to be a playing manager, but the playing went downhill very, very quickly. He hardly played, and he was there until I think it was mid-55 when they canned him. Finally.
And then, if I recall, Stanky came back to manage the White Sox.
The White Sox, yeah.
And
they managed Texas for one day.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
later he was a college coach after that.
Yeah, University of
Alabama.
Yeah, he was there for years.
Yeah, I have a friend that used to be involved with the baseball program in town. He played for Eddie Stanky because we had to play at second base, and this is like a 11-year-old league, and the ball got kicked out of the guy's glove. So I just holler, Eddie Stanky. Everybody's hollering like this, and I kicked it out. I go, Eddie Stanky, 1951 World Series. So
Rizzuto used to talk about that all the time when he was in the announcer's booth.
And this guy from town comes over and goes, I played for Stanky at South Alabama.
Huh.
Wow.
How ironic that was.
It is an ironic baseball world. I mean, there's always something that ties in to something else that brings back memories. But we started with Shane Dingst. Let's end with Shane Dingst. your recollections of Ed, of Red, Al Blumkin.
Well, Red was, he's one of the early baseball cards I got, and with that the length of that name, was kind of intimidating. But he peaked in '53 when he hit 342, and he was just very, very steady. And one of these players didn't make a lot of noise, but was very, very went about his job quietly, efficiently, and effectively. And when the Braves, the Giants got him, and he was there for a year, almost to the day. They got him in the trade, which sent Alvin Dark to the Cardinals, and then the Giants sent him to the Braves, and right before the trade deadline, '57, for Bobby Thompson. Right. The return of Bobby Thompson, Danny O'Connell, who the Braves had gotten from the Pirates after '53 and got worse every year, a pitcher by the name of Ray Cron. And Shaney's immediately solidified the Braves infield, and they wound up winning World Series and a pennant. And then in 1959, when he was sick and out the whole year, they tried 7 different second basemen. The only one who was ever any good was Bobby Avila, who was at the end of his career by then.
Cleveland.
But they had certain guys like Casey Wise and Chuck, guys that couldn't do anything.
Javier, right?
They had Chuck Javier, and Joe Morgan, the one who managed the Red Sox later on, not the Hall of Famer. And they had one of the O'Brien brothers. They had the fieldsman. They had guys that just couldn't do the job, and they wound up blowing the pennant in a 2-game playoff to the Dodgers that year.
That Matthias threw the ball away.
Yeah. But Gene, were you disappointed by 1968 and the 2 series that they lost with Herzog in '85 and '87?
Well, they had a lead. They bombed Viola in the first inning, and that was it. They had 2 runs, and it looked like they were going to be hitting him.
But in Kansas City, with that Denkinger play,
the Denkinger play, that's a classic one. I mean, and basically
that must have upset you a lot.
Yeah, it was like what the that was like the Jeter homer pretty much. Of course, for the World Series win. But the problem with that is not just the call, but they had to collapse after that. They destructed after that.
No, the 7th game was terrible, and Andor got
the wild pitch. Clark dropped the foul ball, and the Ior got the big hit there. But they self-destructed. It was like the Bartman thing, right? When Bartman, first of all, I don't even blame him because Bartman and other people were also going for that ball. And
but also with the Bartman thing, there was the shortstop made an error on a tailor-made double play, which everybody.
He was the best fielder in the National League.
Yeah.
And they self-destructed, and it was an 8-run inning.
And what about '68 with the Curt Flood? When he missed
that was my wedding. That was my wedding. I got married during the 3rd game, and the first thing that the priest said is, "Not are you worried?" He goes, "Hey, Cepeda just hit one." And so we're driving down Florida, which is what most people did in New Jersey in them days, and we're going through North Carolina. And if you ever read my book, my wife hates sports, and she goes, it was kind of staticky and everything. There's only 2 stations we're going through in North Carolina. You shut down offhand. I go, it's the World Series. So she put a jinx. She put her fingers. I'm going to jinx your team. So I wasn't worried. The Cardinals were winning that game and everything, and then there's a hit to left field, and Lou Brock's running from second, and they're going to get another run, and all of a sudden Willie Horton uncorked the throw of his life, and Bill Freehan, who some people say should be in the Hall of Fame, but with 1,500 hits is kind of hard, but he was like the Great Wall of China. So Brock did not slide, and to me, there's film and whatever. It looks like he possibly got his foot in there on the plate before Freehan he did like a bump thing when he collided with him, but there was no slide. Sliding into Freehan was like sliding into the Great Wall of China. So Brock went in standing up, and he was up. But the Cardinals were still winning that game. And then to top it off, starting the rally for the Detroit Tigers was the worst hitting in the American League, Mickey Lolich, allowing to hit with the team losing. He didn't put a pinch hitter up for him, maybe because he hit a home run in Game 2 off of Bryles. So he let Lolich, and Lolich started the fateful Game 5 rally to put the Tigers over the top. But I still wasn't worried because the Cardinals were still up 3-2. Then came Game 6, and Denny McLain was going to look like Claude Williams at the 1919 World Series with 3 losses because he was going on 2 days rest. If they could, they hit him pretty hard in the other 2 games. So I figured out that's going to be it. And that's when we were down in the motel. That's when I went into the motel to get some towels, supposedly, and I happened to turn the TV on, and the Tigers had their 10-run inning. And that was the end of that game. The Cardinals couldn't hit McLean, who was probably on all kinds of cortisone, supposedly. But anyway, so Game 7 comes along, and I'm sitting by the outdoor pool, and my wife, she stayed in the hot sun by the pool, and I went to the outdoor bar that they had by the pool with an awning on it watching the game, and nobody did anything. And Brock and Flood both got picked off in the same inning from first base. Lulich had a great move, and then the fateful Flood might have caught the ball, but when he went back, he lost his footing for whatever. The ground gave way or whatever, and he kind of slipped going back for it. I don't know if he would have caught it or not on Northrup's triple. That was the only thing that they
That was amazing to me because Flood had such a great reputation as a fielder. I mean, so did Willie Davis, but Davis screwed up in the World Series, but Willie Davis had a reputation for being fast, but he was just making up for mistakes.
Had 3 errors in the 1 inning.
Yeah, that was Koufax's last game.
Yeah, I listened to that at 2 o'clock in the morning in a bunker in Vietnam. The next day, Wally Bunker won the next game.
When you were on your honeymoon, I was in my first week of basic training at Fort Dix. I was lucky. I found out who won the game the same day, and I was supposed to have KP in the middle of Sunday. I paid some guy $10 to take it for me so I could listen to the game.
$10, wow.
Game on the radio. This is 1968.
That's like a lot of
money.
Yeah.
It's like a fourth of your salary almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when you were down in Fort Dix, were you in basic or were you?
Yeah, I was in basic. Yeah.
Okay.
I was in the reserves for 6 years.
But when you go there, when they're going to assign you someplace, you could just walk out. Nobody knows who you are when you go down there and you're going through before they assign.
Oh yeah. When I was in I had summer camps occasionally. I would hide out in the library because nobody would think they're looking for anybody there.
And
that's a whole other story. You could write a book on those experiences, but you were too young when they wound up losing to the Dodgers by 1 game in 1949.
Yeah, I had my father's tennis partner was like 10 years older than me. He lived a couple houses down.
Yeah.
And he was like a math tutor for me. He'd come over like on Friday night to help me with my math and so forth. And he was a real Cardinal fan. He's the one that gave me the Gas House Gang book that I read for today at my book report. And he just about knocked his radio off the table when Glavino, the third baseman.
Glaviano, yeah.
Yeah, he made a real big error there. He was telling me.
Yeah. They have one of the things that always interested me, why they they went up in 5th place in 1950, and basically it was because the pitching collapsed totally. The Burkine and Pollard and Wilkes and all those guys all of a sudden got older ones. Yeah. But I became a big fan of Musial, especially when he was going in 1958, the first part of that season, when he was going for the 3,000th hit, which hadn't been done in 16 years.
I remember that batting race for there was about 5 guys, and they were picking Musial to win it. Ashburn winded up winning it.
Yeah.
Musial, they came in third with 337.
But it's funny because when he got the 3,000th hit, it was the first one since 1942, Paul Wainer.
Wainer.
And in 61, when Spahn got the 300, it was the first one since Lefty Grove 20 years before. This wasn't something that was accomplished every day.
Yeah, well, World War II knocked a lot of people out of the,
yeah.
Like even Nina Slaughter, maybe he had like 23 something, like he could have possibly gotten the 3,000 if.
Yeah, but you got to the point where in the 80s when everybody now these guys get 3,000 hits, bang 280, because they hang around for so long.
There's not even military. Like I'm a big Ken Boyer guy. He lost 2 years. He wasn't in a war, but he was still serving with Uncle Sam. Willie Mays, Gil
Whitey Ford.
Ford.
The three, Ted Williams, Whitey Ford, and Willie Mays were the three Hall of Famers. And the one I did a whole
Jerry Coleman.
Yeah, well, I did a whole presentation on the players who served in the military during the Korean War, even though they, a lot of them didn't go to Korea. And the one I felt was most affected by that was Don Newcomb, because he was very bitter about being drafted when, a couple of his contemporaries who were the same age as he was weren't, and he had a terrible year. The first year he was out in 1954. And then, of course, after Yogi took him, to the cleaners in 1956 World Series, he started boozing.
Oh,
I don't know if he was boozing before then or not.
That coincided
on the bar in
with
Newark.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
On the bar in Newark. I had a cousin. He told me he was like 7 years old, and he lived next door to the bar in Newark, and he walked in there, and this big man, well, what are you doing here? Oh, Mr. Newcomb, I just came for your autograph, and then he, gladly signed it. He was a pretty good guy, Nuke.
Yeah.
So he goes, oh, okay.
But he was really hurt by that. But, Harvey Haddix also, when he did his 2 years, he was still in the minors.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, even Hodges, because the military didn't break up his major league career, but it stopped. Same thing with Yogi Berra. It stopped him from playing earlier.
Well, how about Jerry Coleman going in and Billy Martin taking over second base?
Yeah, well, Coleman went in because he was in the Marine Reserve. But Coleman was not in the major leagues until 1949. But
I meant Korea.
No, he was called up to Korea, like the way Williams was. They were Marine Reserve pilots. And Billy Martin
was Coleman was called up for Korea as well.
Yeah.
Which enabled Billy Martin to.
And Billy Martin after 1953, after he had that tremendous World Series, they drafted him in 1954. The same thing with Johnny Padres. The next year, after when Padres was called up, Williams really called a military out is making, for making special cases out of them, calling them up just because they were famous, World Series heroes.
Mantle got a lot of heat because
Mantle got an awful lot of heat for big
osteoporosis,
osteomyelitis.
Osteomyelitis.
Yeah, he got that from being kicked in the knee at a high school football game. And then the other knee was the one he tore up when he stepped into the drain in the 51 World Series.
Right.
And he also got a little flash, too.
Willie hit the ball.
Yeah.
Which was unbelievable irony in that one play.
I also wish that Stan Musial hung around another year so he could get into the World Series.
Yeah, but then would they have gotten Brock then? That's it.
No.
Musial pointed, when they just said what you said, and to Musial pointed to Brock. Well, we had him. That's why we won. If I was playing, we would not have won.
Yeah, I asked Groth when I interviewed him, I asked him about that trade. He says, we all thought we got the worst of it.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah, and Brock came over.
I was it too.
And you know what Brock told Groth told me is he says he felt when he came, the Cubs were going through the college of coaches period then.
Right.
And Brock said he didn't know whether he was coming or going with that team. He said he was so glad to get out of there. It was like being paroled.
And the so-called godfather was Buck O'Neill.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
he's being paroled because that college of coaches nonsense that they had there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, everybody, Ernie Berlia was
the Hall of Fame. Buck O'Neill needed to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's crazy that he's not in.
Buck O'Neill and Minnie Minoso, when they put all those 2006 when they put a whole bunch of the Negro League personnel in, they should have put Buck O'Neill and they should have put Minnie Minoso in.
Okay. Why they put a lot of guys in who did well in the Negro Leagues? not compared to Minnie Minoso, who did well enough in the major leagues to make it. But when they put those guys in, some very unheralded guys who we never heard of, and Buck O'Neil was the first black coach in baseball with the Cubs. Why was he not?
I have no idea. Well, you want to hear something crazy? Somebody put up a Facebook picture, cards of 1965 tops of Barron Span's Mets.
I have their cards.
And they went into the Hall of Fame together in 1972. So I put down the reason Span's last year in the majors was 65. He pitched in the minor leagues and the Mexican League the next 2 years as a pitching coach. So they delayed his eligibility. And when I put that down, and somebody else put down that when he finally got in 1972, he got 83% of the vote. You tell me. You tell me.
A lot of people, as a matter of principle, they will not vote a guy the first time.
That's ridiculous.
DiMaggio, did DiMaggio not get in the first time?
Yeah, well,
Nobody got in the third time.
But that was different then, too, though.
Ford got in the third time. Marichal got in. They delayed him because of the Roseboro thing. But this idea of not putting in, anybody. People didn't put Musial down the first time, which is insane.
Yeah, generally, if you got over 90%, you were good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a step.
You should get 100, but you're upper tier if you get over 90 because of these people that wouldn't vote for a guy for the first time.
Yeah, they still do that. That's insane. Somebody asked me if put down, do you think Mariano Rivera next year will get 100%? I said no, nobody does.
Okay, that's a very good question. Is there anybody that ever got 100%?
No.
Seaver?
No.
Even Seaver?
Seaver got 98 point something. I think he's the highest.
And Mays didn't get
no Mays, no Aaron, no Mantle, no Musial Williams, nobody.
Griffey got a lot too because
Griffey got very high, but nobody gets 100.
People doing that now.
Yeah.
Most people will vote, like Chipper didn't get Chipper's. I mean, a no-brainer. But
I know. Yeah.
Vote him because they wanted to vote for 10 other guys. It
doesn't matter if you put down 10 guys. This is not like MVP where you get points for first place. It's not like that.
Well, now everybody knows how you vote. Was it the case back then?
No. The one who really, not so much for the Hall of Fame, but there was a Minnesota writer who in 1967.
Yeah, Tovar.
The year that Yastrzemski had that monster year, he voted for Cesar Tovar for MVP. Of course, Yastrzemski a unanimous MVP.
He didn't even vote for Killebrew. He voted for Tovar.
Tovar, yeah.
Killebrew was, the RBI and
yeah.
I mean, he was runner.
Williams, he got screwed out of at least 2 or 3 over the years.
Yeah, well, the Sporting News Major League Player of the Year, Williams has 5 of them.
Well, he lost the 2 years he won the Triple Crown. He lost in 42 to Joe Gordon, and he lost in 47 to DiMaggio because the Boston writers hated him.
But it's also the criteria of what people have for.
Yeah, a couple of them put him 9th or 10th, and then or they wouldn't even vote for him. And they hated him that much.
When Snyder,
I have a question for you guys. Sporting News was out of St. Louis.
Yeah.
And the publisher was a guy named Spink.
Yeah.
And I recently heard something that he was a racist.
Yeah, he was a product of his time. And when the Indians signed Satchel Paige in 1948, he came out with a thing, was travesty to the game and everything about that. And of course, Paige was sensational for the 1948 Indians. He wound up eating his words and doing a mea culpa toward the end.
Yeah, he was 6-1, and they needed every one of them wins.
Yeah.
Because they had playoff with
that was a great.
The Red Sox, but he was. I mean, a lot of these guys, some of these guys were products of their times.
But I tell you talk about the racism of the 1950s, but it didn't stop the National League writers for voting for a black guy.
No.
Almost every year.
Well, good point.
And deserving
but
it, too,
I don't know if Al, you grew up you did too, Gene. You were right in New Jersey, right across the bridge. Let me ask you if you remember hearing about it. I know I don't remember the 51 season other than being at a game before Willie was called up, and then after they reconfigured the lineup in 1951, and my grandfather's telling me the names and all that stuff, but I didn't know enough. And when Mueller got hurt, Hank Thompson went from third and played right field.
He wasn't playing at all because Bobby Thompson was playing third.
Okay.
Hank Thompson was benched, and Mays actually replaced Bobby Thompson in center field. And Hank Thompson was not hitting, and supposedly he was drinking, and they benched him and put Bobby Thompson at third.
Okay.
So when Mueller,
right field,
Hank Thompson wasn't playing at all down the stretch.
3 blacks ever played in the same outfield, and it was in the 51 World Series. And I don't remember where I read it, but there was a little ditty made up by the New York writers that said something at the end, and the Giants have 3 N-words in the outfield. It was something. I'm going to research that and find it or die trying.
One of the ironic things is that they had a quota of 4. The major league teams basically couldn't have more than 4. The Giants had a Cuban catcher named Ray Noble, and he was the 4th. And when they brought Mays up, they had an outfielder named Artie Wilson, who was a Negro leaguer, and went on to star after the Giants in the Pacific Coast League. But when Mays came up, Artie Wilson was they got rid of Artie Wilson.
So I have an Artie Wilson story for you. In 1995 it was, I do a video documentary about the Portland Rockies, a single-A minor league team playing in the Triple-A ballpark because the Beavers had moved, and they were the only game in town, and they broke all kinds of attendance records for an 8A club team in the Northwest League. I'm up in Portland doing a video documentary about the Portland Rockies, and at the end of the documentary, somebody points out to me that there's a guy sitting in the stands that you might want to talk to. Who was it? Artie Wilson. I'm an old Giant fan. I go over. I said, Matt, who my videographer and co-producer, I said, let's get this guy. He films it. We have raw footage of him talking to me, and the batteries went dead. Couldn't hear a thing. It was one of those moments of oh my. Because he was an old 95, he must have been well up in his 80s, and I missed that opportunity, and I'm very sad. What can I tell you? I'll ask Al about there was another shortstop the Giants had down there when they called up Willie Bancroft. Am I right? Was that his name?
They had third baseman Ray Dandridge, who was in the Hall of Fame.
Dandridge.
Yeah, Dandridge was a tremendous. He was the American Association MVP, I think, for 2 years running. But he was like 37, 38 years old. He was at the first meeting that the Sabre local had at Shea Stadium in 1984. He was there, but I had no idea who he was at that point.
Oh, but you got to see him.
Yeah. He always, they wouldn't even bring him up. He was like he was hitting 320, 330 down there. They wouldn't even bring him up for a day.
Wow.
That was really bad. Really bad.
Who was the first black that played with the Cardinals?
Tom Alston was a 6'4" from San Diego. He was 6'4", and he ended up having some mental problems after. Well, it could have been the pressure of playing in them times. And they also got Brooks Lawrence, who was 15-6 as a rookie, and I had visions of another Don Newcomb, but that didn't materialize because they traded him to the Reds after.
Yeah, he had a couple of good years there.
He had a couple of good years with the Reds.
I think he won 20 games with the Reds.
No, 19. He was 19 one year and 16 the next year, but he was already 30 years old when he came up to the Cardinals.
And George Crowe was a Cardinal, too. Am I right about that? Maybe not.
Yeah,
I know he was a Red.
He came up with the Braves.
Okay.
Again, they went to the Reds, and when Kluszewski's back went on him, in 1957, Crowe became a regular first baseman.
Pretty good pinch hitter, and
yeah.
really...
He also played pro basketball.
Oh, did not know that.
Pre-NBA days, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. You know how I admire two sport athletes.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, wasn't it cool talking to Bill Terry?
Ralph Terry.
Ralph Terry. Ralph's a hard name to remember for some reason.
It would be very hard to talk to Bill Terry these days. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be easy to talk to him. It'd be hard to get answers.
Yeah.
So, hey, this was a good show, guys. As is our wont, we're doing it, and I'm entertained. And if the audience is entertained, I'm going to ask them if they wouldn't be so kind as to box up some lightly used children's books and take them to the Head Start program.
Yeah, I want to ask Gene one question. Gene, were you how excited were you in 1964, and did you really think they had any shot with the 2 weeks left?
No, nobody did it. Anybody that says they did is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, Gene Walk just why he didn't rest them and suck up a couple games and rest Short and Bunning. It's crazy.
No,
and that's the same thing that happened with McLean. I was thinking of that when you were talking about how he came in 2 days rest. Hey, these guys are not robots. These are human beings.
No,
Ralph, was Barney Schultz the same guy who managed? Speaking of,
no, that was Joe Schultz.
That was Joe Schultz. Oh,
yeah, Ralph, the guy you have doing the Philly stuff, Kashulis. He wrote a book called September Swoon about the Philly collapse in 1964, which is excellent. And of course, it goes into the whole question about Bunning and Short, and how the Cardinals were there to pick the pieces up.
And Chacon still home with Frank Robinson at the plate for a 1-0 game. There's so many crazy happenings. And then the Mets almost threw the monkey.
Yeah, the Mets were won that last game. It would have been a 3-way tie.
Al Jackson beat Gibson in a 1-0 game, and then Sadecki got bombed, and then I think Seth Simmons started, and then Gibson went in and put it down, and the Cardinals were losing 3-2, I think, in the fourth inning. I was watching that game, and Ken Boyer got a big hit then too, and
won that game 11-5. Mets would have won that game.
I can still hear Bob Murphy, Little Alvin Jackson, born on Christmas Day, the 9th kid, or something like that, and in Waco, Texas. He'd say that over and over again with Bob Murphy, and Little Alvin became a St. Louis Cardinal.
And Dixon and Dick Roth and Bob Skinner were on both the 60 Pirates and the 64 Cardinals.
Oh, good. Skinner, tell me something about him, because I had Jeff Juden on the other day, the pitcher, and I asked him, who was the guy who told you were going to the major leagues? And it happened to be Bob Skinner, and it made me think of him. He was a terrific platoon guy.
He was a very good hitter, and he was competent. He was a very competent ball player, and the thing he's most remembered for in Pittsburgh, is that he wore number 4 after Ralph Kiner.
Oh.
But he went to the he got to the Cardinals by the way of Cincinnati, because that's who the Pirates traded him. The first time they traded him to Cincinnati, and the Reds traded him to the Cardinals. And the Groh trade, when that happened, I was going to school at Pitt, and I heard that on the radio. I couldn't believe it, that they traded him basically for Don Cardwell. And I called up the newspaper there, and they said, yeah. I said, they nuts. And Groh told me he enjoyed the 3 years he spent in St. Louis very much.
Well, he started the All-Star game in 1960 in Yankee Stadium that I was at. And the foul ball, we were sitting in the mezzanine, and my mother was a big jock fan. She was kind of a maverick woman. She loved baseball. And the ball came off, and it hit the railing and bounced back because I didn't think a foul ball could reach it. So my mother, she threw her cigarette and everything trying to get it. The guy next to her winded up with the ball that Skinner fouled off. And when I went to the World Series game in '64, the famous Mantle-Homer game, just prior to that, they took Simmons out, and they had Skinner pinch hit for him with 2 on, and he hit one that would have been a homer in any other park, but he hit it into the canyon in right center. When I was in the right field bleachers then.
Yeah.
Any other park, it would have been a homer.
Yeah.
And then Mantle hit the homer off of Schultz.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Groh did tell me that he enjoyed the 3 years in St. Louis very much, and of course, basically after '65, they all got old. And they traded Boyer, White, and Groh after that season.
What did Stan Musial almost go to Pittsburgh? Was there talk of that at one time?
Early, very, very early.
Yeah, all I heard was about the Roberts
had a shot
trade.
to sign him. Yeah, before he played pro ball, and they didn't, and
okay.
He went to St. Louis. The rest is history. Yeah.
But I thought at the end of his career, because he wasn't even thinking about, playing his whole career with one team or any of that.
No, that didn't happen. I know that Gene can confirm this, that when Frank Lane was doing his best to wreck them, he tried to trade Musial to the Phillies for Robin Roberts, and Bush said no. That was basically the end of Frank Lane.
That's what he said. No carte blanche. You come to me for any trades. I want to know of them. Yeah,
and then Frank Lane left at the end of the year to go to Cleveland.
Right.
Then I think
first guy to trade managers. He traded Jimmy Dykes for
Joe Gordon. Yeah. He built that team up, and then as fast as he built it up, he tore it down.
Anybody who would trade the Rock in Cleveland had to.
Well, Rock. There's a biography that came out on him a couple of years ago, which was pretty good. And basically it said that the problem with Wayne is he couldn't stand any player that got more press than he did.
That sounds like Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Okay, guys, I am going to end it now. Thank you, both.
Thank you. Take care.
Right.
Take care, Gene.
It was fun.
Okay, take care.
That's all I like to hear. It was fun. And talking ball always is. And especially for me, I get to talk to 2 mavens on Friday night. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week. Adios.